Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, where every 25-point lead is safe. As always, I'm Sid. What's up, Reg?
What it do, said football season is back.
It is a long time. We haven't sat down and done this since playoffs of last year. But man, it's time to crank up for the 2023-2024 NFL season. Since we haven't been on here since last year's playoffs, there's a lot that has happened, not just across the NFL, but of course with our Saints in general. So that's where we're going to start. This episode is going to be all Saints, so y'all prepare for that. But we're going to start with what happened with our Saints throughout the off season, what's going on now in training camp, and with the first preseason game played yesterday, and what we're looking forward to going throughout the season. Let's start right off back with the key additions and losses from the off season. Even before free agency kicked off, we were out there making splashes by, of course, getting our quarterback Derek Carr, which, of course, that's the biggest name that we added this season. He plays quarterback, so he's the most important.
Absolutely.
He's the most important. So just digging back to where we were February, March when this transaction went down. What was your feelings about that one?
Praise the Lord. Anytime you upgrade at any position, you like your chances next year. And you just touched on it, quarterback being so important, the most important position on the football team on your roster. So to make such a major upgrade, it wasn't just a slight upgrade, changing out player B for player B. But
Yeah.
to me, this was a head over heels type of upgrade to where you feel much better, much more comfortable about your team going into the next season.
100%. There's no question that he's, like you say, head over heels better than our options from last year, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill. And once again, that was when you look at, and I haven't heard too many people say this, but it is true. I mean, even with the injuries we were dealt with last year, if we had a better quarterback, that could have, we were talking about 6 games. I heard Ross Jackson said the other day there were 6 games last year that
Shout out Ross.
if we just got to 24 points, we would have won. That's
Yeah.
basically what it came down
Yeah.
to. So, and upgrade at quarterback would have been, an answer. So hopefully that changes our hopes and things for this year. But besides Derek Carr, we lost two defensive tackles and David Onyemata and Ishai Tuttle. We added 2 defensive tackles in free agency with Colin Sanders, and Nathan Shepard. And then of course we doubled down in the draft and took one Brian Brzee in the first round. So we definitely we had some guys walk out the door. David Onyemata being the biggest one out of those defensive tackles. But we went and grabbed 2 in free agency, added one via the draft. And now, how did you feel about that turnover across
I
the
felt pretty
defensive line?
good. I felt pretty good about it. David Onyemata started to miss some games the year before he was suspended, so we experienced life without him for a brief period of time. So it was, a big hit, but credit the front office for getting right back out there, signing 2 veterans, drafting another kid that's up and coming, and we're right back to establishing pressure and stopping the run by committee. Most teams have one guy, maybe 2. For us, it doesn't. It seems like it doesn't matter who plays those positions. We're always pretty good at defense. You touched on Shai Tuttle leaving for Carolina, I believe, and David Onyemata, who went next door to Atlanta. They were 2 big pieces of what we do defensively. And it was only one playoff game, one small sample size, but it looks like, we're picking right back up where we left off.
Yeah. Um, other losses, um, other losses and additions actually. So we lost Caden Ellis, who came on strong for us last year.
Yeah, having a
As
good
an
year.
edge rusher. Yep. We lost our we lost both our defensive coordinators. I just wanted to throw that in there too. We lost our co-defensive coordinators. Ryan Nielsen went to Atlanta, and Chris Richard is without work right now. Lost Andy Dalton to Carolina. A lot of our players seem to. A lot of these players that weren't great, according to the rest of the NFC South, they ended up on other NFC South teams this off season, which is real interesting. But we lost Andy Dalton to Carolina. Marcus Davenport, he went to Minnesota. We already mentioned Shy Tuttle to Carolina. Receivers, Deontay Hardy, he went to Denver, I want to say. No, he went to Buffalo.
I think Buffalo.
Marquez Callaway went to Denver. Kentavious Short, another defensive tackle. Kentavious Street, another defensive tackle I forgot to bring up. Lost him to Philly. And then Justin Evans, he also went to Philly. And, of course, it's a revolving door. Brought in Brian Edwards, drafted A.T. Perry, so brought in those two receivers. Also added James Washington to that wide receiver room. Brought in Foster Moreau at tight end. Brought in Jimmy Graham recently at tight end. Jamal Williams at running back, which was a huge that signing in general was huge. We talking about 3 years, $12 million to bring in Jamal Williams, and that's easy. Yes, every time.
And I'm gonna throw this out here real quick while we're on Jamal Williams. That went so under the radar. A lot of not Saints fans in general, but I feel like on a more broader base of NFL fans, a lot of folks just look at that like, oh, it's just another running back signing. But to me, it's exactly what we were missing for so many years. We touched on the importance of quarterback, but now we can kind of get back to that aggressive run style, a guy that finishes rushes without going out of bounds, fighting for those extra yards. I feel like, this is shades of Chris Ivory kind of all over again. We haven't had a bruiser running back in quite some time.
And more importantly, it helps in the red zone, which is somewhat we struggled mightily last year, And he's not the only piece, but that shows
I was about to say,
that shows the emphasis that we're putting on getting touchdowns instead of field goals in the red zone.
Absolutely.
You talk about Jamal Williams, getting Michael Thomas back, adding Jimmy Graham, having these big bodies that we can, go to in the red zone. Hugo Amadi, who wasn't, he didn't jump off the page to you when we signed him in the offseason, but now that we're here in training camp and preseason games, he's definitely somebody who looks like a lock to be on that 53-man roster in a couple weeks.
Absolutely.
Brought in Lonnie Johnson and Jonathan Abram as well in that secondary. And then
secondary is loaded.
Yeah. And just real quick, we going to touch on just the draft picks too before we dive into these players. But second round went to defensive end Isaiah Foskey. Once again, you lose Marcus Davenport. All right, let's go address this. Let's go add something else to this position. Drafted Kendre Miller, running back out of TCU. Nick Saldivari, the guard out of Old Dominion. Jake Hayner, Fresno State quarterback. Jordan Howden, safety out of Minnesota. And then A.T. Perry in the 6th round. I'm trying to think. That was most of those. We added Billy Price and Trey Turner. Billy Price got hurt, got cut. We turned around, signed Trey Turner, lost him for the season as well.
Yep.
That was unfortunate. Trey Turner for sure was one that was looking promising to have somebody who could start. Being your first lineman off the bench would have been, that would have been amazing. Training camp wise. Brought in Kareem Hunt, brought in Anthony Barr, didn't sign either one of those guys. Friday brought in Jalen Smith, actually signed him, which is important. I'm sure we'll get to that because of the injuries and, things of that nature during training camp. And then today brought in Darrell Williams and signed him at running back. So, yeah, that's the trends. Oh, Alvin Kamara got his suspension, 3 games. The best.
Very grateful.
Very
grateful.
The best.
Very grateful.
Initially, everybody was thinking 6 games. So to only be missing him for 3 games is huge because especially from what we've seen in training camp, what we've seen them doing with this offense, it looks like we could get back to using Alvin Kamara as we were 2-3 years ago versus what he had to be last year and how we tried to use him the year before that. So yeah, here we are, training camp week probably 3, starting week 3 of training camp. Once again, had our first preseason game yesterday. So where do you want to start with just how our team is looking going into this 2023-2024 season?
So we touched a couple times on the importance of quarterback. So I think it's only fair we begin at the quarterback position. So grateful the front office got Derek Carr to sign early. We were very aggressive with Derek Carr. Didn't want to let him out of the building. Hey, look, no reason to go visit no other teams. This is your home. And I'll tell you why I like it so much. For one, this to me wasn't a signing of a quarterback who was the best out of whatever else was left in free agency. We did our research. This is our guy. We want you. It puts him in a situation and in an offense that was very similar to what he was running in Vegas, but was just more protection and better weapons. So that's a plus. He's still at the point where he can, extend plays. He still has a strong arm. It's not a throw out that he can't make. And you're not counting on Derek Carr to be Patrick Mahomes for you. You're counting on Derek Carr to be Derek Carr. Everything just makes perfect sense for me. I think sky's the limit for this offense. And I think the offense is going to be so good this year, it's going to actually help our defense out. So I am very pleased with what I've seen from Derek Carr so far.
And me and you touched on this yesterday on the phone when we talked about Derek Carr. And one of the biggest things for me is him being able to get there to the line of scrimmage and identify who the Mike linebacker is, identify what adjustments need to be made, be able to switch to another play right there at to give him two plays and say, okay, go out there and figure out which one is going to work for us. It's something that we didn't have the past 2 years. We haven't had since Drew Brees is gone. And no, he's not going to be Drew Brees, but Derek Carr is easily the best quarterback we've had since Drew Brees hung it up. And I mean, I guess it's debatable to some people, but Derek Carr's a top 15 quarterback in this league, and he's just gonna. I think this year he'll probably have his best year. Like you say, you're depending on that same Derek Carr that we've seen in Vegas and in Oakland throughout his career, but now he's in a position where he has better protection and better weapons.
And before we move on, I will also say this about Derek Carr, the importance of him. If you look around our division, to me, it's not up for grabs, for say, like a lot of folks kind of think it is right now. I think it's our division. You say why? I feel like we have the better overall team, and I'm not just being a hometowner right here. I'm not just saying it because I'm a Saints fan, but I really, when you look at the roster, you look at past years, I believe we have the best team. And now I think it's very obvious we have the better quarterback. We have a very favorable schedule this season. So you combine all of those things, it's striking season for us. You got your quarterback, you got everybody healthy, everybody's good, you got good depth. It's time to go out there and get it now.
And that's the great thing, and that's a great thing, and a big thing to me as well is the depth. Like, it's not just, let's make sure our starters are of good talent. It's in most positions except for at this point, I feel like linebacker, except for at linebacker, we have the depth to, okay, if somebody gets injured, we're able to cover that, whether it be running back, wide receiver, the secondary, even across that defensive line and offensive line right now. We have guys that can come in, fill those holes, and not necessarily see a drop-off, especially if you're only asking them to come in and cover for a game or two or to finish a game or something like that. True. Since we're sitting here talking about quarterbacks still, Jameis Winston, and being able to keep him in-house, especially after the year went for him last year, was huge. Even though, once again, sticking in his quarterback room, Jake Haener is the best quarterback that the Saints have drafted in a very long time. And that's, of course, basing it just off of what we see in preseason and training camp. But be realistic, that's all we've seen from the other quarterbacks that we've drafted over the past decade or a while as well. Jake Haener seems to be of the mold of a Derek Carr and a Drew Brees type of quarterback. Of course, not at their level, but of course he's not the mobile quarterback. He's not of that make or mold, but he seems like he's going to be a guy who at least sticks around as a Chase Daniel for teams for a decade in the NFL. And if he can be anything better than that, his relationship with Derek Carr already, so that being somebody who was mentoring him having, admiration and a relationship with Drew Brees, that may lead to him being our next quarterback. But let's deal with the 4 or 5 years we have with Derek Carr first, and then we'll
let's
see
enjoy
what Jay Haener. Yeah,
right.
and then let's see what Jay Haener is after that time. Where you want to go next? Hit the quarterback room.
I would like to take a dive into key players. So I think, for so long, before I was saying, it's been the same importance. Can we protect? Can we get to the quarterback? Things of that nature, kind of as a group. But who are the key players you are identifying this season? Your must watch, make or break. I'm sorry.
Again, I say outside of quarterback because me and you, we both know that that's where it starts and ends right there is Derek Carr.
Absolutely.
Which of course he's been a healthy quarterback throughout his career, so there's no reason to think that he won't be here.
And I want to hear your pick because for not the first time, it's not that often we agree on things like this. So I'm kind of waiting to hear your pick.
Okay, so wait a minute. Let me make sure I got the question
right.
I give you talking about one offensive player
and defensive.
One defensive player who is what the key, the most important, like what we doing.
Yeah.
The most important.
Like look, like this is gonna be for this guy. This guy's getting off. Man, if he goes down or if we can't get him the ball, whatever the case is, we doomed.
And we're not gonna do quarterback. All right. So
nope.
Defense is easy. Demario Davis. Not only because he's the best player on our defense, but because that's where we lack that depth. If Demario Davis goes down, if Pete Warner goes down, it's going to be tough sledding, in that linebacker position. But of course, more so for Demario Davis, because even if Pete Warner goes down and you have to go to DeMarco Jackson or Jalen Smith, Demario Davis is going to be able to ease that transition a little bit, being out there with him.
Absolutely.
Demario Davis goes down and it's okay. Pete Warner, now you have to fill Demario Davis's shoes, which
absolutely
I really like Pete Warner. I think he's a good linebacker, but he's not Demario Davis, and then he won't be able to assist whoever else is coming in with him to be better at that position. So Demario Davis is 100% the key on defense for me. On offense, it comes down to Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning, of course, what's the most important position on that line? It's the left tackle position. Drafted him last year, didn't get to see too much of him. But once again, the Saints drafted him to be their starting left tackle. Week 1, he was supposed to be starting for us. That means they saw something in him, especially once again at that position, left tackle. They saw something in him that made them feel like, hey, this is going to be a guy that's of the Ryan Ramczyk mode that we could plug in day one and he only gets better. If he proves that he can be a top 10 left tackle in the league,
scary.
Protecting Derek Carr for the next 4 or 5 years, that is
crucial. Be scary. It is.
But again, we're talking about if he gets hurt, if he can't play, then okay, now we're playing James Hurst out there. Okay, James Hurst might be our starting left guard going into the season. So now we're kicking him out to left tackle, reinserted Andrews Pete at left guard. Now we're shuffling that offensive line a little more than we want to, especially if somebody else goes down. And James Hurst is there, do it all. You want to put him where whoever goes down. Okay, we're gonna try to put James Hurst there. If he's already taking up that left tackle spot, that hurts us everywhere else on that offensive line. So for me, it's Demario Davis on defense. On offense is James Hurst. I don't think we have the same two players here. I'd be shocked.
So we don't.
Not James Hurst. On offense is Trevor Penning. Go ahead.
I got you. I know what you're saying. So defense, we definitely see it the same. I just knew you was going in a different direction. Demario Davis, for all of the reasons that you said. The only thing I will add to it is Pete Warner led the lead in tackles prior to his injury. Caden Ellis get thrown in the fire. He's right there in tackles. His sacks went up. All of a sudden, it looked like he learned how to play football just from watching Pete Warner do it. But like you said, if you move Pete Warner into the Demario Davis uh, side of things, now he's controlling the defense. It's not just seeing react. It's see it before it happens. It make signals, pass signals on. Be a leader, right? Be a leader on the field, off the field, the whole nine. And it's a lot of things Demario Davis does that just completely goes unnoticed. We may pick up on it because we watch the Saints all day long, but dude's a natural born leader, man. And whenever he's given an opportunity to go get the quarterback, a lot of times he do it. I mean, he comes down with the quarterback.
They gave him more opportunities last year, and he
cashed in with what six sacks or something like that, 6-7 sacks. So yeah, it's definitely Demario Davis. Always high tackle numbers. Very smart. Stop the run, play sideline to sideline, great in zone. I can go on and on forever. Demario Davis, easy.
But also, just to throw this in too, because we keep putting it out there as if Pete Warner was just decided to take his position. I do want to, based off training camp, if Demario Davis was to get hurt, it seems like they just try to slide DeMarco Jackson into that position and let him take over, let him call the plays, let him run that defense. Once again, Pete Warner, DeMarco Jackson, God, like whoever, unless it's going to be a drop off from what we're getting from Demario Davis. So yeah, I did want to make the thing that most likely it would be DeMarco Jackson filling that role, but it's still a drop off,
Absolutely. So moving on to the offensive side of the ball, this is where I kind of figured we would differ. Not for no bad reason or anything, just seeing it different.
Chris Olave.
Absolutely. I saw something in this dude last year, bro. I saw something in this dude last year, bro, and I'm like, this kid is special. When the ball touches his hand, this kid is special, man. I'm talking about he can house a slant. He can get on top of you. He can make the acrobatic catch. And he did all of this with Andy Dalton last season. Yeah. I can't tell you how many balls got away from Andy Dalton, how many was overthrown, underthrown. But just to know that the deep shot is going to be a staple in our offense now. I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I feel like as Saints fans, this was our safe haven. Was our offense during the Drew Brees experience. If nothing else, defense 30th, defense 28, defense 26 in the league. Yep. We knew our offense was coming out and scoring points. There was no weakness in our offense. And I'm trying not to do this prematurely, but like you said, this is just the best quarterback we've had since Drew hung it up. I think we're right back there. And given the fact that Chris Olave has shown so much just in the small sample size that he's been in the lead, getting him a quarterback that can make all the throws, there's no restrictions in the playbook. Of course, Derek Carr's, he needs to get more and more familiar with it. So maybe everything doesn't start adding up until week 6, week 8, but the potential is definitely there. And I think Chris Olave is going to be a name that all NFL fans know moving forward.
100%, I agree. I think that he was overlooked last year. I think that he was overlooked last year, and I think that he is overlooked going into this season as well. I don't think that Garrett Wilson should have won Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. I think that should have been Chris Olave.
I think he had more. Then he had more yards, more touchdowns than Chris Olave, if I'm not mistaken.
The numbers were pretty much even. Even if he had more, they were right there. They were, they were right on top of each other. So I do, once again, neither one of them were in great situations, especially
I was about to say, I think I would have leaned more there.
But
because he had to.
But I think that wasn't once again, I'm not saying, Garrett Wilson, it was, crazy that he won it. Nah, I feel like they wasn't what. But this offseason, this training camp, this preseason, it seems like he's been overlooked again a bit too. And once again, like you said, for as long as Drew Brees is here, we knew what our offense was going to give us. It was, hell, it's going to come down to what we could get on defense. And for a while, I mean, we had a 3-year stretch of, like you say, the worst defense in the league. These past 2 years, it's been the reverse. The defense has been strong. The offense hasn't been able to keep up, and that's why we've been losing games. it's hard for me to not be excited about what we have going on offense here. Not just because of the addition of Derek Carr, but like you pointed at with Chris Olave, a second year of a guy who was our number one receiver last year. You give him a better quarterback. You give him an Alvin Kamara who's going to be more active than he has been the past 2 years. You give us hopefully a Michael Thomas who that dude, he's hungry, and you can tell he's hungry. You just got to hope that his body holds up for him. If you put Michael Thomas out there for 16, 17 games next year, pick your poison. And which one you gonna pick? And then Rashid Shaheed, the fastest of what we have going on over there on offense, is gonna be looking for his opportunities as well. And then you get once again Alvin Kamara getting back in that in the passing game. Once he serves his 3-game suspension, but then you got Jamal Williams, who spent his entire offseason working on being a better receiver out of the backfield as well. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's hard to not look at this offense and be like, hey, we going back to being a top 10 offense.
You haven't even touched on the possibilities with Juwan Johnson, who seems like he's going to be a staple in this offense.
I mean, the tight end room in general, because it's Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau,
and Jimmy Graham.
Taysom Hill, who's not just going to be. We know what that is. He's going to line up everywhere possible on offense.
And I still find it shocking that we get so many reports saying, Taysom Hill is still going to be taking snaps at quarterback. And I get it. I mean, it's going to be times for that. It's just the way that they keep throwing that information out there. I'm like, look, I hope we don't go back to seeing this 5 to 7 times a game. Like,
I don't think it'll ever be that much again. I think this year we're going to have more situations where I think you more so see him at slot wide receiver, lined up in the backfield with a Jamal Williams or with a Alvin Kamara. I think you see a whole lot more of that this year. But, of course, there will be the times, especially in the red zone, where you got Taysom Hill at quarterback. You got Alvin Kamara on each side of them. Jimmy Graham at tight end, Michael Thomas at wide receiver. What you going to do?
So only good things happen. Only good things happen right there.
Yeah, so I think we're going to get a lot less of him at quarterback, but you're not getting less of him in general. He's still going to be out there just as much as he has been.
So right now we're already made it to the halfway point. It's so much that we haven't even scratched the surface on, right? So I'm going to try to jump forward a little bit, right? But we did biggest impact players offensively and defensively. If things go wrong, right, what are your biggest concerns for the offense? The biggest, I guess, worst scenario you think can happen for the offense besides injuries?
Oh, besides injuries. Okay. It's so tough. This offense is so good.
I was about to say, you just spoke him. You just put him way up here. Look, you put him up here, and I'm asking you to come back down here.
It's so good. Like I say, injury is the thing for me. I can't see a regression for Derek Carr that would be big enough to be like he would tank the offense. We're not. If we can't throw the football, we're still going to be able to run it. If we can't run it, we'll still be able to throw it. So, play calling. It would be play calling. If for some reason we get out there again this year and there are situations after situations where you got Pete Carmichael saying, okay, on first down, we only gained 1 yard. It's 2nd and 9. Let's run the football again. Yeah. Or we get to situations where it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2, and we're in the red zone, and we don't have more situations where, man, let's go for it. And it's always let's kick the field goal. Even though I think our field goal kicking will be better this year, I think Will Lutz is back to his normal form, and then we got another guy in the wings. If he's not, we got somebody in the wings who's definitely willing to take over for him and capable. It seems like thus far through camp too. But I think we'd have to look at it and be like, Pete Carmichael sucked, and I don't think that he was. I don't think he's as bad of an OC as we saw last year. I think we get back to seeing a way better flowing offense, especially if it's just because of the talent alone. So I think that would be it.
Yeah. So I was right there too. That's what I came up with was play calling. Now I must say I love the play calling in preseason, but it's preseason. You hear a lot of coaches say we're just gonna air it out this year. You hear a lot of quarterbacks in general saying I'm gonna let it rip this year. I think it was Kirk Cousins the year before last. I know Aaron Rodgers was touching on it a little bit this off season as well. I'm letting it fly.
And then of course you have the Cowboys saying, "Oh, we're just gonna run the football."
But yeah, I think it would be play calling. That's the only thing I think that would put us in a box at this point offensively. Is play calling. And we got our kicker, bro. It's Will Lutz. They saying he drilling 60-yard field goals. And
I agree, but the other guy is right there with him. Like I think they've missed about the same amount of kicks during this season. But of course, it would take him to it would take Will Lutz to lose it. Then
absolutely. Well,
and I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah. They're saying at this point it's not even like a competition or a conversation that needs to be had. But like we talked about, I think it was earlier, he'll probably be on somebody roster.
100%. If he doesn't make our team, he's kicking.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we touched on offense. We came up with the same thing, and now we're going to turn it over to defense, which has been our staple these last couple years. We do have a very, I won't say old, but veteran defense. With Cam Jordan, Honey Badger, Marshawn Lattimore, Demario Davis, you know the names. Okay. So if the defense was to fall apart, what would be the issue that went wrong?
Same thing that hurt us last year, not being able to stop the run. Even because I look at it and say, even if we're not getting to the quarterback, which again we struggled with that a good bit last year too, but our secondary and the linebackers were good enough to cover up for a lot of that, which I think
a whole lot.
The secondary I feel like is even better this year, especially if health holds up. So it will come down to, man, if we can't, for some reason, if we can't stop the run, that would definitely be the thing to sink this defense.
I got you. So the run, looking at the numbers, it screams we struggle against the run, but I don't think that was the case. I just think our offense could never really help our defense. You'll see the defense get a stop, 3 and out. Close game. We lost so many games. Like you said, Ross touched on it. We could have just got to 21, 24 points consistently last year. That could have converted in easily another 3 to 5 wins. But I don't think it was the defense necessarily getting gashed by the run. I just think it was a combination of them kind of being more fatigued, always on the field. Never could really gamble. We always had to play conservative defense because you didn't have the offense that could make up for your downfall. So I'm not going to go stopping the run because I truly don't think that we'll have an issue. I mean, even if we finish top 15 in run defense, which I think we'll probably be more top 10, but even if we do go top 15, I don't think that's a true concern.
I don't think we finished top 15 last year.
We did,
and that's the problem. Just saying, like, we finished top 5 against the pass, defense, but against the run, we didn't even finish top 15.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Or we just got blown off the ball. What I'm saying is the defense spent so much time on the field. I think now that you have a quarterback and you can score points, teams cannot just get a 7-10 point lead and just basically milk the clock and move the ball, slowly or whatever. So I think the offense is going to bring that youth back to the defense in a sense. It's going to basically help the defense out. My issue is getting to the quarterback. That's something that last year also kind of stood out to me. Was we didn't pressure the quarterback as much as we did in the previous years, and of course we didn't cause turnovers. So this preseason, although it's a small sample, it was very good to see, very exciting to see the defense get their hands up, tip so many balls, so many deflections, which led to an interception. Just being active. You saw D tackles running guys downfield, finishing plays. Multiple Saints defenders on the ball, to bring down a guy. It was that kind of stuff that made me feel like, all right, the defense is going to be all right. We just need an offense that can put up points as well. So I just think it's going to be causing turnovers. I'm looking at this team and I'm saying we are a good team by nature. We are a veteran. We're a sound. However, I don't see the guy out there that's going the pressure that leads to turnovers.
Really, you don't think that
Mm-hmm.
take care of Jordan's passes, passes heyday? You don't like what you're seeing from Peyton Turner thus far?
Uh, once again, if you tell me Peyton Turner has the same year that Marcus Davenport had, which wasn't a bad year, it was more about money why Marcus Davenport left. Um, that doesn't result in turnovers. That's not strip sacks. That's not getting there within 2 seconds, forcing that ball to be thrown fast on that 5 yard, 6 yard slant. Then what the QB wanted to off the receiver interception. I'm saying I don't see that. I see the D line being steady. I don't see us being just ferocious. I see us being a very steady defense, kind of like how we was these last couple years, finishing top 10. Um, Not truly struggling with nothing passing or running. I just don't see the turnovers.
Okay, and I mean, me personally, I think about it just like last year, to where if you're telling me we had a good pass defense, even though our pass rushers weren't actually getting to the quarterback, then in turn, I mean, if we're that again, then it comes down to the secondary actually being more aggressive in trying to force those takeaways instead of just the pass deflections or the pass breakups. Which once again, I think we're gonna have a better shot at that. I don't think our starting secondary played a game together last year. I don't think Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May, Marshawn Lattimore, and Paulson Adebo all played a game together
Wow, that's crazy.
last year. And it's the same thing with our offensive line. Our starting offensive line,
Of
Trevor
course,
Penning,
yeah.
Pete McCoy, Ruiz, and Ryan
Right.
Ramchick didn't play a game together last year either. So I think that's going to be the huge difference. And of
Yep.
course, coaching. We switched
Mm-hmm.
over. We had some turnover at defensive coordinator. We had some turnover at key individual positions. New DB coach. I want to say we have a new. I don't think we have a new defensive line coach, but a new linebacker coach. So those things. Oh no, we do have a new defensive line coach. I want to say, dude from Florida. So yeah, like those things are going to be the little changes. I think that equals more turnovers.
Gotcha.
But once again, I could definitely see it your way too, to where we go out there again and we end the season with. I think we maybe got up to 7 interceptions last year. I think. Um,
Sounds about right.
yeah. So if that ends up being the case again this year, I can definitely see how we're looking at it and saying, well, I mean, that's what killed us. We just couldn't
Yeah.
we couldn't capitalize on
Couldn't turn the
turnovers
ball
because
over.
we weren't getting any. You know.
Yeah.
But I do want to say again, let's not fool ourselves. Injuries is the biggest thing of all of this. So if we can manage to keep
Is this not
both,
mad? And I can't just cut injuries off like we do like you
oh
can do
man,
on
I
Madden.
wish. Oh man, if we could go out there with no injuries, let's that would be a whole different story. So let's start looking forward a good bit. I mean, more
Okay.
more so. We know what the schedule is. We know what that looks like. We got what I consider a favorable bye week, week 11. I was tired of the week
Yep.
4, week 5 bye weeks. That kills me. So we got one. We got one in week 11. We have what, 3 primetime games, I think, which is pretty low. We have, I think, 2 Thursday night games, and then Monday night in week 2. Um, Thursday, Monday. I don't think we have a Sunday night game this year. Yeah, we don't.
Wow.
Don't even have a Sunday night game this year. So, um,
Normally always good for one.
yeah, and like you said, well, because of how the schedule played out, we have a weaker schedule. We definitely have a weaker
Mm-hmm.
schedule, which benefits us, especially in an NFC conference that's so weak.
Mm-hmm.
So I
I
mean,
like the way you said it. Just so weak.
yeah, it's so weak. It's open to everybody except for probably 2 teams at this point. But um, oh, and of course, just a heads up. After this episode, our next 3 or 4 are going to be a lot of just looking around the NFL, predicting the NFL divisions. We'll get to the conference winners, pick our Super Bowl teams before the end of the preseason. But Let's just look at the Saints real quick and what you think that record is going to look like after 17 games.
After 17 games and now after finding out Elvin Kamara is only going to be missing 3 games, I got us at 11-6.
11-6. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think most of actually I haven't heard too many Saints analysts actually do records yet, so we're going to see what those look like. But me and you are in the same area. I got us at 12. I got 12-5.
That's the most common thing that I've been seeing. Everybody look at it like we won 7 and 8 last year, that we were supposed to win at least 3 or 4 more.
Yeah.
So adding Derek Carr, no one can make way on why we shouldn't win more games with Derek Carr. So
exactly. At the least, man, I look at our team. I look at this schedule. I look at where our health is right now, which is no major injuries. No, we haven't lost anybody too key yet. I look at it and say, man, 10 games at least. Like that's
right.
That's easy that we get to 10. Yep. But I think 12 is 12 is where we should fall at for sure if health stays on our side. I look at, when we talk about losses, we're good for a division loss. Whether it's the Buccaneers, whether it's the Falcons, you got one right there. But we have a stretch where it's the Bears. The Bears, the Vikings, which luckily our bye week falls in between that. But it's Bears, Vikings, bye week, and then Falcons, Lions. And then even after that, it's the Panthers and the Giants. I just think throughout that stretch right there, I think we get 2. I think we can see 2 losses just off of that stretch alone. And then, of course, like I say, whether it's we go to Foxborough or Green Bay and end up, dropping one, even though we got that in favorable situations too, being able to play both of those teams on the road at the beginning of the season versus, November, December. But yeah, I can definitely see us dropping, 5 games, but to think that we would lose or win rather any less than 10 games, that means everything goes wrong. I feel like that means everything went to crap early on in the season.
I'm right there with you, man. So we definitely got the records about the same. Seems like we're a game off, nothing big. But for the most part, we see the season shaping up and see the rosters shaping up just the same. I just wanted to touch on some injuries that inspired at training camp. We had Endo Benjamin, who definitely looked like he was on his way to make the team, who's now out for the year. You have Shaheed and Traquan Smith dealing with hamstring injuries. I think for the most part,
I think is dealing with
I think at this point they're saying that it's mostly just rest. Like he's good. It's
just no reason of course. There's no reason. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that was it. I know Shaq Davis kind of had tweaked something earlier when camp first started, but he's been back catching balls, so he's good to go.
Kendra Miller sprained his knee yesterday at the preseason game. They say he'll be out of action for a couple of weeks, but he should be good for week 1.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I think that's about it right now, though. I think that's where we are with injuries. Yeah.
So that's good. Big thing is all the young guys are contributing. They had amazing camps.
Oh no, that's not it. Andrew Pete is hurt right now. He hasn't returned to practice yet, if I'm not mistaken. He's dealing with, is it a hamstring as well?
Or a quad.
Or maybe a quad. Yeah, I was going to say maybe a quad. Which they say, once again, none of these they say are too serious. They just, of course, it makes sense with an Andrew Pete, with a Demario Davis, those type of guys. You take, your time with.
We don't need y'all out here right now. We don't need y'all out here. But
so yeah. I did want to ask you. I still haven't caught a replay, been able to watch the preseason game yet. But what or who stood out the most for you during our week 1 preseason game against the Chiefs, where we won 26-24?
I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people made plays, so I can sit here and call out a billion names because they all stood out at some point of the game. But if I had to pick one from each side, I would definitely say A.T. Perry, receiver.
Yeah.
Definitely had some balls caught his way. Got on top of a guy for a good pass, stretched out for a touchdown. And on defense, I would have to go with what's his name? Udo
You go
Amadi.
Amadi. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, he like I say, he remind me of CJ Gardner Johnson so far, bro. Maybe a little smaller build,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
flying around the field, not afraid to stick his head in there on those stretch runs and things of that nature. Great in coverage. He didn't allow a catch on maybe at least 3 or 4 attempts,
Yeah.
balls thrown his way. And of course, he got the deflection that Alante Taylor assisted on that led to his interception. So I would have to go with those two guys off the first preseason game.
And then of course A.T. Perry, who went 6 of 6, 70 yards and a touchdown. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but once again, it's somebody. I mean, we traded Adam Troutman for that pick that led to
Mm-hmm.
us taking A.T. Perry. So that's somebody that we purposely moved around in order to get. But speaking of the wide receivers, just real quick, because that's one of the crowded positions that we have in training camp right now, where we know who
If
the
not
top
the
three
crowd.
is. We know that
Yeah.
it's Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, and Rashid Shaheed. But now we're
Mm-hmm.
looking at 2 or 3 more wide receiver spots, and we're saying, well, who's going to fill them? You know, you got
Yeah.
Traquan Smith, you have A.T. Perry, James Washington. I feel like I'm missing another guy.
Edwards.
Brian Edwards. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who already has a relationship with Derek Carr. Um,
Kirkwood.
right now, oh yeah, Keith Kirkwood, who had
Mm-hmm.
he had a good preseason game too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so sitting where we are right now, who do you think? Let's assume we just keep 5 receivers because of what's going on in the tight end room and what's going on in the running back room. I think we end up with 4 tight ends going into this season and maybe 4 running backs as well. So let's say we're keeping 5 wide receivers. We know who the top 3 are. Who takes up those last 2 spots according to you right now?
Super tough. Like if you would have asked me this last week before this preseason game, I would have a
Yeah,
different 5. But after seeing the first preseason game, definitely Perry. Big body. He's everything than what I heard he would be. Big
yeah,
body guy, very, very aggressive with his catch, big catch radius, not afraid to go up and get the ball. He showed that like first preseason game.
yeah,
He's a lot. Now the final spot to me it gets tricky. I like Brian Edwards because, like you said, he has a relationship with Derek Carr. They're very
yeah.
familiar with one another. But everything that you read about Kirkwood, Key Kirkwood,
Get Kirkwood.
fabulous guy. They saying they don't know if we have another receiver that works as hard as this guy. Um, I was listening to Ross Jackson. It's about our third time shouting out Ross. He was talking about how he shows up early. The only player on the Saints team that shows up early with Derek Carr, ends the practice late with Derek Carr. He wants to be there. He wants to be present. He's been in the lead a couple years, attached to the New Orleans Saints. This could be
Yeah.
his year as well. But if I had to just put the house on the line, I'm going with Perry and Edwards.
And I'm gonna go with A.T. Perry as well. Like I think that guy is once again when you look at a Michael Thomas injury away, and you're like, well, who gives us somebody who gives us that same frame can kind of do
Yeah.
some of the same things. You look at A.T. Perry and say, yeah, that's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th spot, I've been pretty consistent so far. We're gonna see if that change going forward, but I think it's Brian Edwards. I think he gives you as good as, if not better. I think he gives you better play at receiver than a Traquan Smith does. And once again, we're talking about somebody who, when you bring in a new quarterback, you try to bring in things that he's familiar with. Brian Edwards, Foster Moreau, those are guys that he already has, a connection with and is familiar with. So to me, it would make all the sense in the world to have him floating around there at that 5th spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I had us doing our NFC South predictions today, but because I want to do 2 divisions each episode, probably going forward, I'll save that for our next one. We'll start with it. Well, we'll do NFC South, AFC South. and we'll make our predictions on how those divisions play out. But man, we're here. We're less than a month away from kickoff. Kickoff, I think it's September 11th. Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Detroit Lions. So our first game September 10th at home, which is also a surprise on our schedule. We've been traveling a lot for opening day, but we get the Titans at home on September 10th. Man, we're less than a month away.
No more. The most important thing is no more weekends without football.
Yep, 100%. 100%. I can't remember who we got preseason this week. Is it Houston this week? Is it?
It may be because the Chargers, right? Is it the Chargers? I think it's the Chargers.
Right off the top of my head, but
yeah, I think it's the Chargers because I think we're doing joint practices with them starting tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So another. Wait, let me see. Dalvin Cook is signing with the Jets, and we saw Ezekiel Elliott sign with the Patriots earlier today as well. So that running back market has finally
ran its course.
started to. Yeah, I mean Kareem Hunt is the only one really out there at this point that's worth talking about, in my opinion. Anyway. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, things are getting done. I think that's the top players. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we were saying, okay, DeAndre Hopkins, Dalvin Cook, Zeke. We'll see where those guys land, and most of them have already found their spots. So, more for us to talk about going forward. But I mean, first episode of the 2023 season. All Saints, which is always fun.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Oh man, can't wait to do this some more.
All right, now until next week, man. We catch y'all. We appreciate all the support that we get, and you're locked in for All Saints needs. If there's anything you missed out there, training camp, preseason, we got you. We're gonna hold y'all down, man. Appreciate y'all.
100%, man.